Hello and welcome to the Pages to Pixels podcast. I'm Keerthana,
I'm Rohan.
and this week we're talking about Amar Singh Chamkila, a Netflix film by Imtiaz Ali, starring Diljit Dosanjh and Parineeti Chopra. To start off, here is what IMDb says the movie's about. Amar Singh Chamkila follows the life of the pop star duo Amar Singh Chamkila and Amarjot Kaur, whose songs that were social commentaries or devotionals became massive hits in the 80s. I think that's a pretty accurate description of the film.
Yeah, basically, it kind of does just follow their lives. I guess let's jump right into it. What were your thoughts about this movie as a whole? I would say
it was a straightforward biopic. I know that a lot of people have been talking about it as being Imtiaz Ali's comeback. I don't know about that. As in, it was an interesting movie because the subjects of the movie had like an interesting story to tell. I don't know if the screenplay itself or the film itself did that for me. How about you?
Yeah, I agree. I guess it's his comeback in the sense that it's the first movie he made in 4 years. And I kind of agree with you. I actually think that this movie is extremely well directed. Stylistically, I was. Whether it's the fourth wall breaking, the split screen, the animated sequences, I loved all that. It's from a story perspective, I felt that's where it was kind of lacking.
Yeah.
And specifically, I think it was lacking focus. In that this movie, the logline is accurate where it's following their lives. And I think that because of that, it doesn't really have a story that builds upon previous scenes. Rather, it almost feels like you're just watching actors recreate moments from these people's lives.
Yeah, those moments were recreated very well because they do like a comparison between the real footage and what was shown on camera. I thought it was very well done, but again, that story wasn't as meaty as I expected it to be. It is a non-linear narrative. We cut back and forth between the time after the death of Amar Singh Chamkila and his wife, Amarjit Kaur, I think.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. And despite that, I thought that the narrative wasn't interesting enough to keep me focused, like you said. I think the other big thing that I was maybe missing was the central conflict of the film.
Yep.
Because I think they kind of present it in a way where we're supposed to believe that his big problem is that he listens to his audience. I don't know if that was established well enough before the other external conflict starts, for it to feel like something to invest in as the movie progressed.
That makes sense. I also just felt like, and kind of, we talked about the framing device that they used of, it starts out with him and his wife being killed, and then the entire movie is shown through, as you said, flashbacks. My issue with that is, with those flashbacks, it's really just kind of his friends narrating his story to the police.
Yeah.
There is nothing, it's just kind of the two of them making their music and performing rather than, and they have a lot of obstacles, but they don't have there's not something specific.
Like, maybe it feels like, now that I think about it in hindsight, it feels like I didn't find an external goal.
Yeah.
Which, not every movie needs to have one, but I think in this one, when there's a biopic, it's hard to invest in someone's journey when you don't know why they're on that journey.
Yeah, I agree. And when I kind of think back and we were having this conversation earlier, before recording, but when we think back about some of the great biopics in history, there's always something specific. There's always a specific moment they're focused on. They don't tend to focus on a person's entire life or journey or career.
Yep, which I think contributed to the biggest, like, I think that was the biggest issue with the movie. It kind of starts with when he wants to become a musician and it
Yep.
goes on until he dies, um, which is a long time to cover,
Yeah.
just in terms of years to do in like a 2.5 hour movie. I think it's a challenge, and I mean, they did their best, it looks like.
Mhm.
I will say that the other elements of the story, the other elements of the movie, other than the story itself, were all solid.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Like you were just talking about how it was presented, like how stylized it was. I loved it. I loved how he chose to like break like traditional like filmmaking methods to tell the
Yep.
story. I wish more movies did that. I mean, it just opens up so much, like it gives you so much ability to tell a story effectively. The animated sequences were excellent, very
Yeah.
well placed. I also really like the little split screens with the where it looked like they were inside like a film reel,
Yeah,
basically.
that was cool.
That was very well done. I also especially really like the way the songs were presented.
Yeah.
So when you watch it on Netflix, if you do watch it with the subtitles, basically what happens is you see them performing the songs in Punjabi. The subtitles are in English, but on screen, the film gives you the translation to those songs in Hindi.
I believe that's part of the film, though. Like, I think if you watch it even without subtitles,
Yeah,
the Hindi
you'll
stuff
still
is
see the
gonna pop
Hindi
up.
stuff. Yeah.
It reminded me of John Wick, honestly.
No, I mean, I thought that was a very cool viewing experience because I don't understand Punjabi. I do
Same
like
here.
understand Hindi and English, so it was cool to see like the
Yep.
comparison of the language. No, I thought that was a very fun touch, and I'm sure it helps a lot more people understand it better.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean everything. I feel like you give this movie a great script. Um, it's one of the best movies of the year.
True, very true. The music was great. I mean, they did use a lot of the original songs, and
But they
we
reperformed them.
yeah, exactly. We found out that both the artists both the artists Diljit Dosanjh and
Yep.
Parineeti Chopra both performed these songs live while these were recorded, which is a pretty cool accomplishment.
Yeah, I mean that's super impressive. I mean I knew he could sing because that's kind of his primary career, and I believe he performed at Coachella.
He did, I remember.
Yeah, and I think he's performing here in LA soon. I had no idea that she could sing like that.
No, she's really good. I feel like I've seen a bunch of clips of her on like reality shows and stuff as a judge. She's really good. I mean, good for her. I mean, it was a good performance.
Yeah. One of the other things I also liked is I actually really did buy into their romance. Like I think both of the actors had great chemistry
They did.
with each
They
other.
really did. Yeah.
It was done, and I thought their romance was done very, very well. It never felt forced.
Yes, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but I think in the scenes that they were on stage, I think she outperformed Diljit Dosanjh. She was very into it. The costume designers did a fantastic job,
Yeah.
Especially with Parineeti Chopra's wardrobe. And it was very enjoyable to watch both of them perform together. I would imagine if they were able to get the rights to some of his music, they should just do live shows with it. I feel like they would do pretty
Yeah.
well as almost like a transmedia entity of sorts, you know? No, it was fun. What did you think about the cinematography and the editing?
Yeah, that is actually something I wanted to bring up. Again, I think both were fantastic. I thought visually it's great. Cinematography was great for the visuals. The editing was very good, and we talked about. I believe the last episode we did was Monkey Man, and I had mentioned that at times the editing from going from one scene to the other, there was times where it felt choppy. I never felt that in Amar Singh Chamkila. It flowed so smoothly.
Yep, Aditi Bajaj was the editor. And she's done some really good stuff in the past. I will say I might disagree with you on that.
Oh, really?
Okay, so when you watch it, it's very clear that a lot of those cuts were written into the script. Some of them that weren't, I thought kind of jumped out. And I'm not talking in the sense of like just narratively, I'm just saying even visually. I think it kind of just took me out. I don't remember exactly which scene it was, but it was just a transition from a night to a day scene. and it just kind of felt like the previous scene was cut short, and the new scene was brought in before maybe the beat. And I feel like I noticed that a couple of times through the film. But I don't think it like ruins your experience or anything, unless you're like specifically looking to like basically pick the film apart, as we do sometimes. So no, I mean, it's a great, it's a good piece of art. It is very long. I did think that it ran far too long.
I don't think it needed to be 2.5 hours, especially for a movie that kind of doesn't have much focus to it.
From the time he's given his first like performance opportunity until the very end of the movie, the controversies surrounding him are the same. Basically, he sings songs that are considered to be vulgar by some people, and those people take issue with him performing these songs at all. And that's basically the bulk of like those are his obstacles. These people who don't like his music are his obstacles. It just felt repetitive after a point.
Yeah.
Because essentially, like, one group will come and say, this is bad, don't do it. They'll go away, and then a second group will come and say, this is bad, don't do it. And then that just kept repeating.
And yeah, that's kind of the entire movie. And even after he dies, when his friends are telling his story, the police officers are kind of just saying, well, he shouldn't have been singing those songs. And it was, like as you said, repetitive.
Yeah, I think the ethical part of that conversation can come a little later, because I have very, very strong views on who should be allowed to sing and say what. But for the purposes of just this 2.5 hour narrative, it did feel a little repeated.
Yeah.
Were there any scenes that stood out to you?
I think after he dies, and that very first musical scene where you have the people of Punjab kind of talking about him or singing about him. And I think in going into this movie, I really did not know anything about Amar Singh Chamkila, and they kind of, first of all, I think that whole scene was done so well when they were singing directly into the camera. It's a great song, but they also kind of mythologize him, where they make him sound like he slept with every woman in the in the village, and it's like, and then when you actually get to know him, it's like, no, he's a very like normal guy. I know that was interesting, because we often see that where after someone dies, they are kind of mythologized into something that they were not.
I agree, and I feel like people grow bigger when conversation surrounds them, in the sense that just that people as an entity, they just grow bigger than their real selves when more than 2-3 people start talking about them. That was a great scene. I really enjoyed it. I think for me personally, though, I like the scene when he splits with his first manager, because he first sings with this other singer, and that duo performs together. And then when he realizes that this manager is not paying him enough money, he chooses to leave that duo. But in that scene, the manager makes a very casteist remark, saying that you will always be beneath us, so to speak. I really liked that in that moment, this character chose to stand up for themselves.
I agree.
It didn't. Here's the thing. Throughout the movie, this character is shown as someone who is, at least until the very end, he's shown as someone who will just say yes and agree and, put his head down and do what needs to be done to make his money. But when the manager said this, and it was talking about his identity, he stood up for himself, which I thought was important and needs to be shown a lot more in films. That was a great scene. I mean, I will also give a shout out to the fourth wall breaking song where all the women sing, which I thought was great. Was a cool visual. I thought the intent behind it was very obvious in general. Like, they wanted to make something that was like groundbreaking, basically. Yeah. And I mean, it worked. It was a very, very memorable scene for sure. I will bring up this one thing. So this movie was about a couple, and they were both singers, and they were both in it together, and they were both killed for the kind of music they sang. But I think on screen, most of the leading action was still coming from Diljit Dosanjh's character. This could have very easily been a dual protagonist film. Yeah. But I don't know if I heard really like Parineeti Chopra's character's thoughts about things until that one scene in Canada.
Yeah.
where she chooses to go with him. I think before that, it was just, I don't know, that character did kind of fall a little flat for me.
Yeah, it is 100% kind of his movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that's even, I mean, even the name, it's
Yeah.
not, it's Chamkila, it's not Chamkila and
Amar Singh. Yeah, exactly. And see, that's the problem because there is a whole section in that movie where he's like struggling to find a partner to sing this music with. His songs were duets, and the whole point was that the female voice, uh, pun intended, in these in these songs was important. And I just thought if the subject matter was, I just thought that something like that would have benefited from a better rounded female character in the film.
Yeah, I agree. And, we can make it dual protagonist, or if you keep him as a lead, it can work that also. But I think I agree. Her character was kind of very flat.
I feel like, for example, right, his friend, manager, whoever, the guy who introduces him first, um, don't remember his name, but his character had more of an arc and more weight to it
Yeah.
than her. That's always concerning. Um, Hopefully, with time, things like that get better.
Yeah.
But I do think this segues us nicely into what we were about to bring up a little earlier on, which is the nature of the music that the real character and the character in our movie made. I mean, the real person and the character in the movie made. His lyrics were, like I said, considered to be vulgar by a lot of people, and the conversation was that he shouldn't be allowed to make music like that. Now, I understand that there's a lot of similar conversation around art and storytelling out right now. And while I personally probably wouldn't enjoy the kind of music he made, I still think that censoring that and saying this stuff like this should never be talked about, or stuff like this should never be brought into public purview, I think is a big problem.
Yeah, and I think, I think we're going to get into kind of his choices in music and in general, but I think both of us are on the same page. Censorship is never good. And then obviously, we don't condone him being killed for the music that he made.
No, I mean, and the other thing that kind of stood out to me now, especially, was the conversation around religion in his music. Personally, I feel like, I mean, religion is very personal. Like, faith is personal to people. And I think religion has outlived its previous gatekeepers and it will outlive its current gatekeepers. I don't think it is under threat from art. And I thought this movie has come at a time when the whole conversation of religion and art and how they should or shouldn't mix is happening around in the world. With that context, I wish that the filmmakers had been a little more bold with what they were trying to say with this film.
I agree. I think that is another one of my issues with this movie is that I don't think it's trying to say much.
Exactly.
I mean, I guess maybe censorship is bad, but it's not really making an argument towards it. It's kind of just presenting events.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting call because I know that, like, I've been reading up about the film, and a lot of people are talking about how I'm pretty sure Imtiaz Ali even came out and he said that he's not trying to glorify this person, which was an interesting choice to make because they don't show this movie as a downward arc or anything.
Yeah,
like
they
very much present his life as a life well lived and celebrated. So to make a film like that and then come out and say that, oh, I'm not on this side, I thought was an interesting move. Yeah, no, this is a fun movie if anyone wants to check it out. It's out on Netflix right now. That being said,
what would you rate this movie?
Oh, okay. Just as a reminder, we do it on the screenplay scale, where we either pass the movie if we don't think it's worth anyone's time. We ask you to consider it if we think that there's reason to watch it, and we recommend it if we think it's a good watch.
Yep.
I would say consider. maybe a week consider. It is a long movie, and there's better biopics out there. That's my only.
Yeah, I'm very torn on this movie because I'm very torn between pass or weak consider, because I don't think story wise it's anything. I think the story of his life is interesting, but I don't think the story of the movie is very interesting. But I think the style of the movie is very interesting. But I think I'm just gonna give it a pass because after the first hour, I was just bored and almost kind of waiting for it to end.
Yeah, I feel like when you just to go back very, very slightly, when you present a non-linear narrative, the expectation is that it solves a mystery. Um, like I don't think that the information we were getting through the film was enough to keep you invested.
Yeah.
I just feel like structurally speaking, maybe that's what the issue was. Um, that being said, Amar Singh Chamkila is out on Netflix right now. And if you are craving a biopic, I will also recommend a brilliant Telugu film called Mahanati. I think it's out on Prime. It is one of the best biopics I have watched in a long time. Highly recommend that.
Yeah, and I am gonna recommend Rocket Man. It's the biopic about Elton John. I usually don't like these musical biopics because they all tend to fall into that same trap of they're trying to cover the artist's entire career or sometimes life, and as a result end up being unfocused. Rockman does do that to an extent, but I think there is still more focus in it than something like this, and also the fact that Taron Egerton sings all of Elton John's songs and they make it into full musical sequences. I found that very impressive. And also, just to share something else that I've been watching lately, then I've been watching Reservation Dogs. Season 3, I don't want to say it just dropped. It was one of those things where I was on Hulu and I saw like, oh hey, season 3's out. So I have no idea when it came out. But yeah, no, it's strong start to season 3. I liked. I think I've only seen the first 2 episodes. It's good. It's a nice, fun comedy that will, out of nowhere, get super heavy and depressing.
Oh wow, that's I feel like I remember Reservation Dogs from pilot class. I think we were taught that as one of our like sample pilots.
Oh,
this
okay,
is
nice.
what a good pilot is. Yeah. Heard it's a good show. I mean, I haven't watched much this last week, but I did watch a Tamil film called Gilly, which is just doing a re-release for its 20th anniversary.
Oh, nice.
It's a Vijay film, and lots of people have a lot of nostalgia attached to it. Interestingly enough, the full film is available to watch on YouTube in case anyone finds themselves with 3 hours of time on their hands. So yeah, that's it from my end.
All right. Again, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Pages to Pixels. We review a new movie every week, so please do like, share, and subscribe. And thank you so much.
Thank you.